So a wide welcome to everyone around the world who is attending this conversation about remote graduate professional development, as seen primarily from a Irish, European, and then US perspective. So I just want to say, first off, I think it's wonderful that you've registered and that you're watching either live or by recording, because I think it's fabulous that so many people are interested in helping their master's and doctoral students in any way we can, and using remote services for that. And I also just want to say, I really hope that after you digest this, that you'll be propelled to reach out to me personally and say hello, because I'm very interested in building collegial relationships around the world. So once again, welcome. I am Dr. Alana James. I'm an independent researcher. I live in Ireland. I write books. I do research. And in the last 7 years, I've been involved in remote professional development in a business that I started, trying to fill some gaps that I was seeing students experiencing. So what to expect in this period of time? I'm going to go quickly, and I do mean really quickly, through a measurement / theoretical system that I'm developing, because I think a challenge in this work is, how do we measure it? And what do we measure and how do we measure it? But I'm going to spend a little time talking about the actual experience of universities, what tools we see them using for what reasons, and then I'm going to discuss the business just from the point of view that it's changing in the next 3 years, and that might be of interest to a wider population. So let me just set the context for the conversation today. This is primarily from the US perspective, because of the 17 universities that we currently work closely with, all but 2 of them are in the United States. And the US is largely helped along its way by the Council of Graduate Schools. So a new dean comes in, their Council of Graduate Schools member, they come to training, and in those trainings, there is a push that they should consider what professional development their university is using to help master's and doctoral students. The challenge is that just from a educational leadership point of view, is that those offices, the graduate school, is often decentralized from the rest of the university. So they don't have much actual power over so the students come in and they are part of the program, and then the graduate school does things for them. So it's a bit awkward in terms of getting students to sign up to do things, to feel like this is also part of their educational process. And it's that tension of, where does a student go to get support, that actually drives this conversation. And it may be true in all parts of the world. It may be ubiquitous across universities, but I can't speak to that, because my experience is located primarily in the United States and in Ireland and a little bit in the Middle East. So I am using this slide simply to say that our ultimate goal, the center of the bullseye, is student success. I think all of us would agree on that. But when we talk about remote technology, there's actually 3 sets of bullseyes. The first goal is that students use the technology. And so they use it across multiple engagements. An outer circle, what the business world calls a lagging metric, is that they use it as like a library. They come to it when they need it. And their first engagement, then that we can measure is when they first come, do they find it welcoming? Do they find it valuable? Are they driving both pleasure and good academic support from whatever tools we're putting out there? And this is generic across all remote and probably on-campus tools as well, but I'm talking about the technology. So the next one then is but we talk about student engagement as though them coming and clicking and being part of a webinar was engagement. And I don't think that's true. I think engagement is when the student is actively there for personal reasons. That's the humanity of working with technology. And I think that needs to be measured as well. So starting this time from the outside in, they come and they'll need to be encouraged to come by some kind of marketing. They need to be reminded that that webinar is up, that they signed up for it, that they're coming, or that if they're having difficulty with this particular research problem, they can find it there. And that's actually been one of the challenges that libraries have seen as they've moved towards technology. But libraries have the advantage that people grew up and went to school knowing that they should go to the library for certain things, whereas a university is bringing in a remote set of services. They have to train the students that those services are there and that they're going to work well with them. So that's a process. It takes some time. Then, in order for the student to want to come back and attend multiple opportunities, that's the place where they need to enjoy it and they need to find that it worked for them. And then finally, we'll see the student who's really engaged. And this might be somebody who's enjoyed the global audience, the global conversations that they have when they come to a webinar, or it gives them a bigger view of the world, that other students are having similar problems, even though they're in different fields, etc. So that's the centerpiece, is that students know, engage, and perhaps become part of the community of practice. So how do these things then drive to student success? And I'll start at the center this time, if we see success as graduation and advancement into a work life, then we actually have two prongs of academic and professional development. The academic development that gets them to the point where they're ready to graduate, and the professional development that launches them in whatever way they're going to be launched. So we can measure student success with shorter completion times, and then student feedback that they felt supported and they were satisfied. Before that, our supervisors and the people who are working with, especially with research students, see that it is advancing, that the literature review is coming in, that the process is working, that the writing is getting better, that the student is asking more evolved questions, that their thinking about research has changed, and that ultimately they can gather their data, analyze their data, and report out a cogent argument. So backing up from that is really where the academic and professional development, and it's what makes it difficult to measure, because we're looking to help people build solid skills, the ability to think critically, the ability to write, lower the levels of anxiety, have good relationships with their supervisors and mentors, overall wellness. And so much more can be said about how those things can be measured, but I call this the triple bullseye measurement system, and it's the lagging metrics in the outside that need to be our first focus. And then we can begin to measure in, shall we say. We will, of course, have student self-reports coming from all of the levels. All right, so let's talk about what universities do. The first story I'm going to tell is Appalachian State. This is a smallish public university in the United States, primarily master's students, a few doctors of education and professional doctorates, but primarily master's students. And some research masters, not at all a research focus. Overall, their whole population. This university is very interesting because they started their own professional development years ago, and they labeled it Trails to Success. Appalachian Trails is their concept. They're in the mountains. And so when they took on remote system from our company, what they decided to do was to brand it TrailNet. And so it became part of everything they did. And this particular dean believes heavily that students should be regularly reminded of what she wants them to be reminded of. She does not worry about getting too many emails. So she sends them our Monday motivational email, all of them. It's something that most of the time students sign up for. She sends it to all of her master's students, and also the Friday academic writing emails, bracketing the week with a good message, a nice message, an interesting, upbeat message that has to do with being motivated and writing well. She sees about a 30 to 35% open rate on those emails, so they are well received. And then she also, out of her office, sends weekly bulletins about all the things that are going on. And she includes notices about the different webinars that are going on with PD education. And then when she's doing a synchronous meeting online, she includes PD education staff. And we come along and talk to the students about what they have available in the website and the other tools that come with the service. So what are the tools she is using for academic writing? Well, the big one's always webinars. There are we do about 90 webinars a year. Probably 10 to 12 of those have to do with academic writing. There are also self-directed learning modules, which the wonderful thing about doing remote work is that you do it in live and synchronous form, and then you have the recording, and then you repackage all the recordings. So these self-directed learning modules are repackaged materials from the other 7 years of recorded work about the subtleties of things like academic writing. Self-assessment tools look like a self-assessment on writing. There are also a few that go with a number that go with research. There's a box set on critical thinking, reading, writing and analysis, and wellness materials. So how are universities then using the same tools, but for research design? And this time I'll talk about Dublin City University. They've been using these tools for 5 or 6 years now, and they have an amazing rate of usage that's really become embedded in their doctoral programs. And they always broadcast the live events on their communication channel. I'm not exactly sure what that communication channel looks like, but it's very effective. They have high rates of sign-ups always. They also have specific programs that have picked up the idea of remote, and it's the education program and the business and the nursing programs primarily at this university. And then those programs call us in to work with their students specifically on a day that's focused on research or a day that's something like that. We'll come in and be a speaker, show what goes on, and talk to students about how these tools can help them on something specifically that the program wanted them to attend to. So the tools used for research design would be the webinars, and then the self-directed learning modules, but also the self-assessments. So there's self-assessments on topic, on population, sample, all the basics. And what we found is that students will take it that they're not meeting the criteria on a click box. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And then they'll have something that they can take to their supervisor and talk about. And it raises the level of conversation from if they are sitting in front of somebody who's pointing out all their mistakes when they're still at the stage when they don't really know what they're doing or how they should be thinking about research. There's also a box set on literature review and research design. And then again, this was definitely the year where wellness materials were important to everyone. So when we talk, I think every research university is concerned with the student getting through, writing well, and this is across all of the fields. So they may have had a brilliant lab experience, but they don't know how to put the documents together at the end, or they may be required to write for 3 publications, and they can do that, but they don't know how to bookend it to make the final dissertation or thesis, whatever it's called in your part of the world. The most significant, this is a particular topic that asynchronous work works really well with, in that if you're going along well and you need help with review of literature, you can attend a lecture on review of literature and you can get some ideas. But the linear process that's involved in a boot camp actually has a great deal of efficacy. And so we do 2. We do a 10-week pre-proposal boot camp and an 8-week post-data boot camp. These were originally brought to us as a suggestion. We were asked to propose for a university that had a number of students in one particular program that were stalled out 7 years pre-proposal. And so we proposed that we could develop this linear pathway, and it was successful across the board. So there are weekly synchronous meetings that are a lecture and also a open office hours where they can come and ask questions. There are 3 asynchronous opportunities. Every week has a goal for the week and a requirement for reflective practice at the end of the week. And all of that can be tracked so we can stay in touch and watch the overall outcomes. It's, from a researcher's point of view, it's a dream, because they sign up for the long haul, and there's lots of excellent data that show just exactly what's working. But universities are big and complex with many programs, and all these students need some kind of help sometime during the thesis process. So overall tools here include 45 webinars a year, weekly 15-minute research boosts. I do these, and I was asked actually to talk about my process as a researcher, and that's something that, so I take a topic area, I talk about it, just a few highlights, what it means to my process as a researcher, and then I take 45 minutes of questions, and they range all over the ballpark, but it gives the people an opportunity to have a bit of inspiration, and then also figure out some things that are bothering them and how they might go forward. Self-directed learning modules are important here as well. Any university that's doing a 3-minute thesis competition, we do some work with how to present milestones, checklists. We found really early on in what we did, this was actually one of the driving forces that started the idea of how technology could help with these 7 years ago, was that the universities I was working for at the time only talk to students in the big milestones. You need to do your review of literature. You need to get your background, your topic, your area. What is a problem statement? the student who was very new to this needed smaller steps. So we have a minor milestone versus major milestone list, and that student can track at least where they are, get a feeling about being grounded and not so overwhelmed. Pre-proposal and post-data communities evolved. Communities are very difficult online, and we know from our literature that communities are very important in graduate life, but they're very difficult to do online. People come, but they don't want to talk. So what happened during boot camp was that it was so intense that students got to know each other, they heard each other talking, and then the community continued throughout the year. So that was a great lesson. And self-assessments, again, work-life balance, wellness, etc., all part of the mix when it comes to helping people get done. So I am very grateful for your time. And I just want to say that this has been a challenge from a business point of view. I'm in Ireland and it needed to be a business, but you can probably tell from my accent that I come from the United States, and the one thing the US is brilliant at is nonprofits, non-government organizations. So oh, I see from my slides there, I forgot to mention what happens for the student who's needing to be launched, the traditional professional development. And I just quick mention that graduation preparation, job preparation, and wellness also have webinars and written material and all the things that make up a synchronous, asynchronous remote site. This was the conversation I was starting to have. So we've decided that in order for the company to grow, in order for the process to grow through universities throughout the world, that over the next 3 years, we're going to transition the business model from a business in the US to a nonprofit that's based in the United States. This won't make any difference to the people who are interested in bringing these services into their universities. It will be a business contract, and then at some point it'll be a membership to an organization. But the structures will remain very similar and the output will remain very similar. But it does bring up an opportunity that we didn't have before, or didn't realize, I guess, we had before. The physical way these structures work, we want to give the most to students. So I designed a platform that's very student oriented. So every student signs in, they can go through the materials, they can favorite the materials, they can come back, and then later they'll have their materials that they favorited in their section. But this brings up privacy and security issues. It brings up contractual issues. A person who wants to bring this into their university and doesn't want to go through those things might be hampered by that. It also makes it more expensive because with that then comes the individual marketing to these students so that they're reminded that these things are there for them, and data back to the university about who's doing what in what measures, etc. So it's a pretty in-depth university partnership to help these things progress. And then when I took on the idea of a nonprofit, there's always a basic level of membership. And so what would a basic membership look like? It would look like you had a university and you had 5 or 10 programs or colleges, whatever they were called at the university. And instead of every student having their own individual sign-in and the tools that go with that, they would have sign-ins per their group. So we could still report back so many sign-ins. We wouldn't know whether it was the same person 5 times or it was 5 different people, but so many sign-ins from each group. So you could see some relative usage. we wouldn't do marketing out to all the students, or the organization wouldn't, but the university would have the materials and would be able to send those materials on to their students as they chose. And the webinar system that fed into the website system and all the tools of the website would still be available. So we have a low-cost option then that would maybe allow people to take it on, try it out, see what happens, and build within the university structure some understanding of what remote tools can do. Will it work? I don't know. Every time I've taken on something new in this pathway, it's always a do it, see if people like it, see if it actually works for student outcome. Because once again, if we look at our metrics from the very beginning, if we're trying to measure student success, there's some definite measurement challenges with this last idea, but we'll see how it goes. So we have a branded premiere. Looks like everything it's what the universities I've been talking about use. And the company, of course, is called to do consulting from time to time. And then there's this new simple membership plan that we're willing to talk to people about. But I didn't come tonight to just talk about this as a business. I was hoping to open up and engage questions and I'd like to have really very much a better understanding of what professional development looks like in your part of the world. So I'm going to end the recording part now so that the people who aren't in the room but signed up by recording to watch the recording can see it and won't have it go on too long. So thank you for your time and attention. I will close the recording, but with a big invitation, please, to write me. And this slide is a mistake, actually. There's you probably saw in the slides when it went to PDF, some of them squished inappropriately, but buried under there is my email address, which is Alana, ALANA, at doctoralnet. It's all run together just like it is here, only lowercase, .com. So Alana at doctoralnet.com. And if you're interested in talking about the business side of things, you can email Michael at doctoralnet.com. So with that, I'll turn off the recording and ask the people in the room for questions and comments, and we can have a conversation if you wish.